Welcome to our viewers in the Americas and around the world. I'm Doug Ferber from Tieline, the codec company, and you've accessed the video podcast version of Streamline. I'm joined by Jacob Daniluck, our our U.S. codec expert, and today's guest is Charlie Toner from Durham Radio. Durham owns stations in Hamilton, Ontario, and which is just north of Toronto. Is that right?
That's about west of Toronto. It's just on the very tip of the Golden Horseshoe.
Okay.
We own 2 stations there, another station south of there in Caledonia, and we have 3 stations, and our head office is actually in Oshawa, Ontario, which is east of Toronto. So we're kind of surrounding the greater Toronto area with transmitters actually in the city and around the city.
Okay. Well, we're going to ask you a bunch of questions about how you've reacted to the crisis, and it's not just, this is a world pandemic. It's not just limited to the U.S., but it's all over the world. And let's see how the Canadians are handling their radio companies up there in the Great White North. So I'm going to dish it over to Jacob. He'll get us started.
Yeah. Thanks, Doug, for that intro there. And thank you, Charlie, for joining us today on our video podcast series that we're starting up here. As Doug mentioned, let's just kind of dive right into some of the key questions we want to ask you. Real quick, though, just for any of those people who are watching who are curious, could you maybe give us a brief summary of who and what Durham Radio is and what you guys do up in Canada?
We're a privately owned and locally owned broadcast company with 6 GTA radio stations. We've got the #1 country stations in the Toronto area. We've got one of the #1 stations for a rock station. We've got a couple of classic hit stations. We've got a jazz station that's on HD, available around the city. That's who we are. It's we turned 25 in 2019, so this is a 26-year-old company. Started from the bare bones ground floor with Chew Country. If anybody remembers Chew Radio back in the AM days around Oshawa, we were the original. We had taken over Chew, and since then had bought into or built new radio stations around Southern Ontario. At one point, we had more radio stations. We had, I think, 9 radio stations at one point in time.
Okay.
And so we've sold some of those off and concentrated on our core markets. And even in a pandemic, when everybody else is losing revenue and we've lost revenue, we're still a stable company and financially stable and looking for the long run and the long haul.
Excellent. Yeah, no, so Durham's definitely a local radio station that's broadcasting for the local community, it sounds like. Is that kind of the gist of all of that right there?
We are always been very, very focused on local events, local sponsorships. We sponsor a huge number of concerts and venues and projects every year. Of course, with the lockdown, a lot of that's all on hold. We're doing a lot of virtual, support of a lot of these products. And of course, that also means we've always had a strong requirement for remote technology like Tieline.
Okay, well, excellent. Well, yeah, you're kind of diving in right into some of the next points that I wanted to ask you. As you and I have known each other for years, working with Tieline products and me working with Durham Radio, I know you have always been the type of person who likes to be prepared. So I guess the first question about this whole COVID pandemic outbreak that we're all facing right now is, how was Durham prepared, or were you guys even prepared for this outbreak?
It's interesting you bring that up, because we've actually been working with a lot of our providers of equipment, hardware, and software, specifically for that. I've always, harped on, what do we do if we have to evacuate a studio complex? I mean, we do the radio stations go dark. How do we do this? And with the use of Tieline and with the use of our Wheatstone consoles, our AOIP consoles, and with our playout software, our radio automation software, Wide Orbit. We have been prepared for this very well. We've actually been testing a lot of the technology from Wide Orbit as a beta tester for Wide Orbit. We've been using Wide Orbit 4 now for over 2 years.
Okay,
And
excellent.
that includes the mobile gateway, which gives us full and complete access on any iOS device from anywhere in the world. And actually, 2 years ago, when I was at NAB, I had just went live the month before, or actually the week before, NAB, and we were running the radio stations live from the NAB show floor.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so it sounds like Durham's done a lot with live broadcasting in the past. So you guys were definitely, you could maybe argue, prepared for going remote if need be. But I take it you all personally were probably not prepared for the outbreak actually popping up all of a sudden.
I think what we did is we reevaluated our total capability for all radio stations, all of our radio products, to be completely remote broadcasted from home. And we had the basics for a single host to do it. We looked at what it's going to cost for us to upgrade those capabilities so that we could do hosting co-host from anywhere, being able to take more and more resources and put them to air remote from home. And that's where we actually, called our local providers, bought 2 more Tieline Merlin with Wheatstone in it, just so we could put them in different locations.
Okay.
Tell us what specific codec equipment you're using, Charlie.
We have the Tieline Merlin. We have 2 of them, actually, just right over my shoulder.
Oh, yep, I see him back there.
Yep.
We have 2 of them here in Oshawa. We have a Tieline Merlin in Hamilton and a Tieline Merlin in Caledonia. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 Bridgets, or Bridget Extras.
Okay.
And we still have an old, TLR 300 rack mount.
Yeah, some of those old Commander units still.
Yeah, the old Commander, the rack mount Commanders. We still have one of those sitting in Hamilton, and actually, it is still just as useful as any of the others. I mean, the Tieline gear has been rock solid and dependable for years.
Excellent, excellent. So as we're talking about hardware and some of the remote hardware that you guys are using right now, what made you guys decide to go with hardware versus like a software solution out there?
One, reliability.
Okay.
We can put forward error correction and a whole lot of management and remote management all into our Tieline equipment. And you can do the same with, Comrex or a lot of other companies, not to bring the other companies into it, but I mean, that capability in a hardware environment is definitely there, especially when you tie it into an AOIP environment. For us, Tieline's a no-brainer with the Wheatstone platform. It's plug and play. Literally, we plug it in, turn it on, and do a little bit of, 20 minutes of programming, and we're up and running with, 6 independent streams if we want, backward and forward in every other direction we want to go. I mean, the capability is very quick and easy and straightforward for us to use it, especially in an AOIP environment with multiple locations. Because we have Tieline at transmitter sites, we have Tieline at studios. For us to have to travel around to 7 sites that are 3.5 hours apart for 2 engineers, it's getting to be too much. So remote control, access, design, and setup and maintenance, that's a big thing for us. We have to have that. Otherwise, it's really a waste of our time and our resources.
What are you using for remote control, Charlie?
On the sites, on the transmitter sites?
Anything. What are you using? CCC or using the cloud codec controller?
We're just using the web interface that's available
Okay.
on each of the devices.
Okay.
Got it. Got it.
So essentially, you're using the tools that are already given to you to kind of best streamline those for what you're using and how you're using it out there. It sounds like.
Yeah, we're using Server
Mhm.
for a lot of our remote connections. We've been using the Reported app from Tieline for how many years, Jacob? Now, when did I beta test it?
I know you were one of the originals. I know you. I still can find the registration you made back in 2010 when we first launched it. So I know it goes back that far at least. And I know you have some incredible stories about how you've used Report It throughout the years.
Yeah, we have been playing around with the Reported app, I think, for a tad while.
Yep.
I think I was the first one to do a live morning show for an entire week from the city bus.
Yeah, that's right. I remember the city bus story. Yeah, full broadcast, what, 8 hours a day or something like that? Or it was up there, wasn't it?
It was the morning show. It was a 4-hour show
Okay.
on a city bus in Peterborough, cruising around for Magic 96.7, which was one of the stations we owned at the time. And they had lettered up a city bus with the Magic logo, the Magic Bus. And we cruised around and did the entire morning show with Dan Duran and Linda Cash on a Tieline Reported app on an iPhone 4S. And we used a tablet, it was a BlackBerry tablet that we used for control. And I believe this was in the beta test period in 2009.
Possibly. Yeah, it would have been 2009 or early 2010.
We launched the station in 2008.
Okay.
Are you using the Reported for multiple locations for your morning shows now? To let's say you've
absolutely
got,
with COVID-19,
4 hosts.
With COVID-19, we are fully capable to use the Tieline Reported app for both host and co-host.
Okay.
With a bus minus in the Wheatstone board, and with the Wide Orbit 4 app, we can also control the automation software and the console. So we can turn Tieline channels on or off, or even the phone channel on and off. And we do have virtual phones that we can use, so we could actually take callers. So this goes back to full remote automation and running the station in an evacuation scenario. We have not had to evacuate the studios yet, but most of our co-hosts are remote. They are broadcasting from home with one person in the studio. But we are fully capable, and have been for a couple of weeks now, to fully evacuate our studios if we have to.
So I guess that brings up a great question that some people may have not picked up so far on this conversation. Charlie, can you confirm for our viewers right now, are you guys under a work from home order from your local government, or are you guys still coming into the studios each day right now?
We are classified as an essential service because of the news and information that we put out to support our government, both federally, provincially, and locally. And we are an integral part of that, including emergency broadcast services, that type of stuff. So
understandable.
Under those regulations, we can staff our radio stations. However, there is a non-standing rule, or in the broadcast community, from what I've seen, it's an unspoken rule, shall we say, that if a single case is brought into a building, the building gets completely shut down and gets scrubbed. So there are other broadcasters that are all broadcasting from home in Canada, completely from home, because they've had a case come in the building. We have been lucky that we have had 0 cases of any infection come into our building. But we are on a very minimal staff. There is only 1 individual allowed per room or per studio, period.
Okay. So let's kind of go into the future, I don't know, 6 months or a year. What, in your opinion, Charlie, do you see the industry in Canada, in the US, around the world, using utilizing more remote equipment on a permanent basis? And if so, do you think that you'll see more talent be professionally set up in their homes?
Well, that's an easy yes and yes, but I want to expand a little bit on it.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, COVID-19 around the world has expressed an incredible need for remote control access and broadcast. I think we're going to see, we're going to see a lot more home studios. We're going to see a lot more multimedia home studios in all types of marketing, whether it be radio, television, internet. We're going to see a lot of cross-platform design and implementation. So that's one aspect of it, and I think the world has shown how we can do that. We were forced into it in a lot of cases. Some of us were more prepared than others, but we've been forced into it, and we're doing it. And it's for companies like Comrex and Tieline and even Skype has become a major issue. Zoom is another product we're all on, and everybody's using Zoom now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there is, but we have to increase our overhead. We have to increase the data overhead that we have to support. Rogers ran into a bit of a hit here in Canada, as one of our, as did Bell and everybody else. Just the data rates went through the roof when everybody was sent home to work from home, and a lot of our connectivity suffered. Mind you, they were very quick. Probably within 72 hours, double capacity.
We had some of that too.
Yeah. So that's one aspect of it. I think the broadcasting from home has done another thing, another added benefit to how we broadcast, and the quality of product that we're putting out is getting better. And I think that's bringing a personal touch into broadcasting. We've seen it in television, we've heard it on radio, we've seen it in multimedia, where people broadcasting from home on major media outlets has brought their home, to the world. It's brought families, the importance of family in a crisis. And I think that's a very personal and positive touch that we've put in broadcasting in both television and radio.
I like that point. It's a very nice way to summarize it. Doug, correct me if I'm wrong. Have you heard anybody else say it's something like that?
Yeah, well, you hear comments all the time about, pardon my dog barking, or, that's my kid. Sorry.
Earlier, my cell phone went off. Sorry, everybody.
That kind of thing. And I agree with you. It's just made, the local media more local.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. And for a company like Durham Radio, that we've really been harping on local. I mean, we have a news and traffic department that is bigger than some of the bigger radio media outlets. Just because we dive into local, we always have news people on staff. For a small broadcasting company like Durham, we've been really big on that. Report It has been able to help support a lot of that. All of our news conferences and remote reporting is all done through the Report It app and an FTP upload to our Burley server. Okay. Incredibly useful for years. We've been using it. And that just adds to the ability of being local and being involved in the community that we live in.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
Well, excellent. Well, Charlie, before we run out of time here, I do want to give you a few minutes here to maybe share any additional advice or any comments or anything you've picked up on during this whole outbreak and getting prepared with yourself and Ron, the other engineer at Durham. Do you have any advice you would like to share and spread out to anybody who's watching?
Breathe. We're going to get through this. You know what? We are going to get through this. We're going to be stronger as a community, stronger as countries, stronger as a population, and as individuals ourselves. and we're going to be stronger in broadcasting. We're going to be far more involved in our community than we ever have been before. And you know what? I think it's time. We have to do this, and we have to bring media, whether it be radio, television, multimedia, whatever we have to do. We have to bring that out into the community more and more, and bring the community in as part of it. So we are a big community, and there is a positive silver lining in all of this, in some pretty dark days that we've all had to face with a pandemic, a global pandemic that none of us expected. Well, you know, at least none of us in the health industry or virology department of the health industry expected, but we've come together really well, and everybody has really jumped in on this in a lot of different ways, from Tieline to, you know, Wide Orbit or Wheatstone or Axia or whoever the companies are, Nautel for our transmitter sites. Everybody's jumped in and has been very, very supportive in an industry. And when it comes to the engineering pool for broadcasting, we know that has been shrinking in a big way in both the US and Canada and around the world. We have to work smarter. We have to work smarter, more intelligent, a lot more digital remote control and access. That's the key to make this work.
Well, excellent. Yeah, no, thanks for that advice. And I hope the people who are watching this have definitely been able to take away a few things out of this, and can apply that to their own stations and companies out there. Doug, is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I think Charlie has said it all. And, you know, thank you, Charlie, for joining us. And
yeah,
stay strong up there. Say hello to my friend Doug Kirk, and you know, be well. And we'll see us at the next NAB this time next year, as I said.
Yes.
Or CCVE.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Charlie Toner from Durham Radio, for joining us this week in our video podcast segment. I'm Jacob Daniluck, joined with my colleague Doug Ferber, and this has been another stream. Thank you.